Greetings, Internet, and welcome to the newest, coolest episode of my show, The Heal and Harm Show, where I have very interesting conversations with very interesting people. And today I am incredibly excited to chat with Scarlet Imprint. As you guys can see, I love all of their books. Absolutely incredible. If anyone watching or listening to this is not familiar with Scarlet Imprint, please do Google it immediately and buy like at least 4 books because they're incredible contributors to the occult and spiritual space. So welcome, Peter and Alkistis. So happy to have you here.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, great to be here.
And my cat also says hi. So that will probably happen throughout the show as well. So, first of all, congratulations on, I think it's 20 years of Scarlet
Oh,
Imprint.
19.
19.
Almost.
I'm going to round it up for now because that's an incredible accomplishment. Like, how does it feel to you guys to have contributed so much over such a long period of time? As so many creators in the space do tend to kind of trickle out after a few years. So, what does that feel like for you guys to have created such a massive body of work and still be going strong?
Well, we've been working so much that we haven't really thought about it. It's just, I think from the beginning we knew we wanted to be in this for the long haul, that it was going to be something. Well, actually, when we first started, we didn't even realize that we were going to become publishers. We just were intending to publish Peter's Red Goddess. But then, just the way things developed, it felt like, no, we have to be here and create something bigger and longer and something that would inspire the next generation and keep magic alive and a vital force for the people who live on the margins.
Mm.
Yeah, but 20 years for Scarlet feels like a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
It's been it's been such an intensive process, and the work we do is so intensive
We
that
don't come up for air.
we don't come up for air very often. So we kind of come up every time the anniversary comes around.
Like, oh my
We're like,
God,
wow, it's still happening.
we're still here.
We're still here. There's still exciting authors out there. There's still new work, being
Yeah,
discovered. The scene continues to develop and grow.
yeah.
And yeah, we're just delighted to
To be
still be
here.
relevant and still be making books. So yeah,
Yeah.
delighted.
I love it. Obviously, I've loved all of your guys' work. So you were mentioning a little bit that getting the Red Goddess out there was kind of that initial push for publishing. I was wondering if you guys could speak a little bit to that, and I'll just show that book for anyone watching who does not know what we're talking about. So what was the inspiration behind getting this one out there first and foremost?
Sure. This was the crazy story. So I spent 7 years writing the book while working a variety of media jobs and becoming increasingly unemployable with my bad attitude and my extracurricular activities. So um
Relatable, to be fair.
so, so I mean the Red Goddess was a work of love. I didn't intend to initially self-publish it, but I looked at the publishing scene as it was, and there were no publishers who I saw that were publishing books in the way that I wanted this book to be published. And it's very important that we produced a magical book. So the first edition was produced in an edition of 156 copies on the 7th of the 7th in 2007. And so we had a deadline that we needed to hit, and we had particular parameters that we were set in terms of publishing. There were there were things that I needed to fulfill, and getting that book out in that form was one way to do it. It's still a radical book, and I think if I'd taken it to another publisher, they probably would have tried to defang it in various ways. So being able to jump in and publish ourselves meant that we could avoid all of that, and that we could take it directly to the magical community, because back in 2007 we were living in a very different world, and the magical and occult community was very different. It had not been online in Europe for an incredibly long time. Um, it was it was largely a community which was connected through word of mouth, through physical book lists that were sent out by some of the smaller cult publishers like Ben Fernier at Caduceus Books, Occultique in was putting out from Nottingham, and of course Jonathan Midian with Midian Books was putting out an occult list. So books were sold in a very kind of
Very different way.
ear to mouth way between practitioners, rather than it being, things dropped on the internet and drop shipped from China. I mean, this is a very small community, and we were the young punks kind of crashing into it.
I think as well that the way that the publishing was going was enabling people to do desktop publishing and to start, like, artists or magicians were able to seize the means of production themselves and realize works in small editions that were like just really for practitioners rather than looking for a more mainstream or wider audience. It meant you could produce more niche texts, more specialist texts, in small editions, and we weren't really ever intending to like survive doing that, but it happened. So yeah, in the beginning it was just, as Peter says, a means to an end, and just being in control of the whole process ourselves. Yeah, as book lovers.
And it's really grown a lot over the years. And I'm so curious how the occult publishing sphere was in terms of like the talismanic, more like occult book publishing base was back in 2007. As I know now, there's like Zoannon, Three Hands Press, all of that. I can't recall like when did they begin. Like I
Sure.
know this
So,
information, but how was that kind
yeah.
of going on when you guys started?
Yeah, trying to put the timeline together. There were a few publishers at the time. Uh, Robert Ansell was running Fulgur, and he'd been doing that for a period of time, producing reissues of Austin Osman spare material. And so what Robert was really engaged with was publishing the greats of the previous era.
Rescuing them from
Rescuing them from
obscurity as well,
obscurity.
like putting their work in the kind of format that it should be in. And
So Fulgur did a really valuable job with that. There was
Zoannon existed
Zoannon
because
existed
of
because of
Chumley.
Andrew. So Andrew Chumley he started by releasing paperbacks. I'm not sure many people realize that Andrew did that.
The first
But the very first
Azuisha.
Azuisha was a paperback edition. And then he gradually moved
I think
into,
under Robert's influence, he moved into
Yeah.
talismanic book production.
yeah,
But I think he died in 2006 or 2005.
yeah.
So he died just before we emerged onto the sort of publishing scene as well. And I don't think Three Hands Press started a couple of years after we did. I think it was just for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew was, as Alkistis says, he was very much inspired by the relationship that he had with Rob Ansell of Fulgur, and that was really the kernel of that, where Robert realized how difficult it was to sell some of Andrew's works, and he kind of encouraged him to
create these editions,
which would create, create desire around his work in the way that Spare created desire around his work through kind of scarcity initially.
Mm-hmm. And so I think if my memory recall is correct, like you guys were among the first kind of talismanic publishers to also release the kind of popular edition, which you guys called
We were the first ones to do that.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind that? As I think it's quite innovative to be doing both in the same publishing house. Like I don't think anyone else is really.
It was, simply necessity actually, because when we initially started, after the Red Goddess, we did Howlings in an edition of 333. And when that sold out, there was a lot of demand for another edition. And the same when we did Jake's True Grimoire. And so it became like, maybe we never wanted to have like artificial scarcity. It wasn't about limiting knowledge and having just exclusivity. It was just a necessity to produce small runs that we could afford to produce, and that there was only a certain market. But as the interest in the work grew and the market grew, and also as it became clear that people wanted, like other people perhaps didn't have enough money to afford a hardback book, we used the print on demand technology that was just kind of coming into being then to issue things like the True Grimoire and Jake's work in print on demand paperback editions, and just make them more accessible for students, and also in digital editions at the same time. And we still give the digital editions free with any physical book bought from us, because it's kind of useful sometimes when you're traveling or you want to look up something quickly and you know
Yeah,
to
the
find
search is
for
useful.
search and things. So it's like about being transparent about the kind of text. The material is the primary thing. But
Mhm.
it's really just the hardback books that actually enable us to produce the paperbacks too, because the costs involved. So it's like we are selling enough hardbacks to make viable to produce nice paperbacks and
Yeah.
give the digital editions as well.
Well, that
And
makes
also, there's something fundamentally democratic about the paperback book.
Mhm.
Um, I
It was
mean,
we were very inspired by the Bibliothèque Bleue, the French sort of very cheap little grimoire. Like they published all kinds of things, but they published the grimoires like the Dragon Rouge in like these little paperback editions, very like simple that you could put in a pocket. So we were really inspired by this idea that you might just have like a scruffy paperback that you can make notes in and carry around with you, and sort of working copy idea of a book. The democratic aspect of it was really important because you can be very serious about magic but not have a huge allowance for texts and things. And the more voices that were coming to the field, the more important it is to be able to also allow more people to join that conversation by making the books more accessible or the information more accessible too. So I think we spearheaded that because at that time, and still many publishers in the sort of limited edition market don't produce paperbacks.
yeah.
Mhm.
Again, if you're working with a text, it can be nice to have a paperback edition and have one that you mark up. So,
And have a nice edition,
and have
lasting
and
ever.
have a nice edition, or have an edition you can throw in your bag and like take with you,
Or
because
lend.
yeah, or lend out without losing your mind if you don't get it back. So it's
Yeah.
there's something really nice about paperbacks. I mean,
We
we,
just
we
love
just love all
books.
books.
So,
It's lovely to read a a proper hardback book and to have something with proper paper and proper margins and like decent design and like rediscover what the book is as an object. And it's also nice to have a simple democratic cheap thing that it doesn't matter if you spill wine and candle wax on it, or like get it wet when you're out in the rain, or
mm,
it's good to have all of those things with people. There shouldn't be a price tag on knowledge.
No, I completely agree. I
mm.
love all of that. And so I'm really curious, do you guys engage ritually with any of the limited edition hardbacks?
Yeah, we ritualize the production of all of the books. So there are some things that we can talk about.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable sharing. I know some of that is probably under wraps and
Yeah,
necessarily so, and that's completely fine. But whatever you're comfortable sharing would be
well, let me
inspiring.
yeah,
Yeah.
let me talk about one that I can talk about. So, for example, with the Red Goddess, the first edition, there's a copy that gets burned. Like, so there's a copy that goes through the fire.
Hmm.
And that's an important thing to do with the book.
To
When
pass into the other
yeah,
world,
Hmm.
and
pass into the spirit.
when we're working with a book, or when I'm working with a book or a manuscript, then looking out the corner of my eye, I can still see, like, I have praxis on my altar, on my working altar, like the first run of printed out sheets are under there, um, and being still worked with. So the book in all the ways that it comes through is treated as a magical object.
Hmm. I would
Um,
still love to hear more about that if you're comfortable sharing. I know there's probably a lot
there's a lot I can't really talk about that.
that's okay. No, that's
Um,
totally fine.
but it's every book that we have, every book that we send, goes through our hands. One of the things that's
Mm.
important is with the hardback books, it's like it's hand numbered. It's not hand numbered simply to say, this isn't like a machine copy, but it's also because we have personally marked it.
It's part of the transmission. It just feels like there has to be some energetic transmission
Mm,
for the current.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
the way we've tried to remain small. We have remained small, not
We're
through
successful.
not through we have so successfully become non-successful, so that we maintain control over everything, and it's just as we wish it to be. For those who are able to receive the
Mm,
juice, it's there. It's there. Yeah.
absolutely. So I have to ask then, why books? Like, I'm a big book nerd myself. I did in my undergrad a minor in printmaking and bookbinding and all of that stuff. So I am a big book nerd. I
Yeah.
love books and the unique things that they offer. What is it about books that has really captured the imagination of you two, and why disseminate knowledge in that way today? Because there's so many different ways that people disseminate occult knowledge now, whether it's podcasts, YouTube, whatever happens.
None of that existed when we started, though. I mean, and there's something just so beautiful about the traditional. Like we grew up when we were younger, like books were so important to us as ways of escaping into other worlds, other minds. These were like our companions because we were both weird children, so and
Relate.
weird adolescents, and so books were like a huge part of what made us feel that there was a space in the world for us. And what do you think, Peter?
Well, I think the book is the perfect way in
Yeah,
which to convey information.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I enjoy long form podcasts. I think that's a great innovation. I think it's a really good way to get information, but the intimate experience of reading with and working with a book, I think, is unparalleled, because the majority of the successful work that people will do in magic is as a result of the time that they spend with themselves working on or through something, and the book is often the kind of the locus of that. That's kind of where everything comes to. It's also the best way to absorb knowledge. I mean, every time they do a test of people's, for example, reading comprehension, if they've tried to read on the screen and it's garbage because
they can't recall much.
you can't recall,
Mm.
like the screen is a very, very bad way in which um,
To retain
to retain
information.
information, to deal with text. And uh, yeah, I believe in text. I believe in writing. I believe it's yeah,
Yeah, we try to avoid as much like artificial light as possible. So, the light in a book and your own thoughts is the future as well as the past. I think there's a wonderful flourishing of possibility of conversations through things like long form podcasts, but like for actual deep engagement with material, I think the book is still just the perfect. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think, unfortunately, it seems like a lot of the culture is losing connection with long form argument. And
yeah.
Yeah.
people's attention spans are completely going out the window, which I hate. Like, I will never be on TikTok or make those little short form little things. Like, I'm all about, okay, no, let's deep dive into something. And I think you guys are absolutely right that books is one excellent way to do that. And it requires that extended attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's one of the ways that people can put their brains back together again,
Heal.
because we're all damaged by screen time, by like reliance on mobile phones. And when I see the generations that are coming up and the forces that are arrayed against them from a very young age, I think a book is a very good way for people to rediscover their attention span, to actually mentally heal by turning everything else off and like learning to lose themselves in a book, learning to find themselves in that. I think cognitively, that's a superpower. And as we increasingly move towards AI and people use AI to answer every question to themselves,
To think.
they'll lose the ability to think. And I think books are one way that people can put their minds back together again.
All right.
So a lifeline to the future.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys are doing your part, that's for sure. So, in terms of what you guys publish, I'm curious to hear what the inspiration is behind that, because I think you guys are quite unique in publishing not just like Western occultism. It's quite broad, and I would love to hear about the inspiration behind that, because I think that diversity of practice of occultism is actually quite unique.
You won.
Okay.
You go.
We're interested in publishing things which we respond to, because the first inspiration for Scarlet Imprint was really looking at our bookshelves and looking at our friends' bookshelves and having conversations and saying, what books aren't here? Like what can I see that's not on the shelf? Like where is the thing that I'm looking for? If I could imagine half a dozen books that would transform my library, what would those books be? What would they look like? What would they tell us? And so we've been very fortunate in um, having a wide range of practitioners come to us from a wide range of traditions. And that's extremely important because what we're doing with the magical revival is we are trying to restore the Western magical tradition, and that requires us learning from the traditions that have kept their traditions intact, that have managed to continue to practice magic and have things that we can learn from, because above all, magic is eclectic.
Mhm.
There was a long period where people were screaming about appropriation and like cultural this, and there is there is a point to that. But look at the Greco-magical papyri. Look at the way the magicians have always worked. Like we're magpies, we're thieves. We take things,
We share.
we
The
share
traditions
things, we
are
alter
always on the
things.
edges of their cultures
Yeah,
as well. They're not.
and we recognize each other.
Hmm.
If you meet a practitioner from another culture,
You'll
you have things
fall
in
into
common.
talking about what you do and.
And you can learn great things from them. You know,
Absolutely.
Hmm.
so there's a range of things that have happened there. I mean, Jake did a very interesting thing when he was initially like looking at Kimbanda, and I know that his work on Kimbanda has been like criticized subsequently. But the work that he and Nikolai did in introducing the ideas from the African diaspora religions to a Western audience
And
is
telling them that they should be interested in this material and that they had something to learn from these cultures and their
is
traditions.
is an incredible thing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, one of the things that I found in my journey through magic and in Western magic, what we were seeing was that there was a lot of ceremony, but there was not a lot of spirit contact. In fact, there was a deliberate attempt to frustrate spirit contact generally in the way that people worked. And the African diaspora religions were the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember when it was practitioners going to a small local underground cinema screening and watching the works of Maya Deren and like seeing the inspiration from voodoo and seeing the way that people were practicing magic and seeing how they were working with possession and going, well, these are
These
things that we've lost. These are things which are like missing from our traditions. And like how how can we how can we effectively reconnect these things? You
Mm.
know? So so yeah, I mean we emerged at a very exciting time in magic for that.
No, I love that. And as you can tell from my
Mm,
selection here, I've
mm,
got, I think, all of the Nikolai books in that kind of
mm,
current. And
mm,
I remember when I read them, even though I'm not in any way connected to any African diaspora traditions myself, like I recognized to some extent my own practice
yeah.
in what he was writing about. So I grew up in spiritualism, so I went to my first seance when I was like 8, like transpossession, spirit contact, table tipping, physical mediumship. Like I grew up with all of that stuff. And you're right, like the spirit contact piece is missing from so much of the way a lot of folks in the West talk about witchcraft, magic, occultism. And it was so nice and refreshing for me to be like, okay, cool, great. I can see this reflected through a bit of a different cultural lens, a different series of practices, a different milieu, obviously. But there
Mm,
is still that same kind of spirit connection piece that to me is recognizable, even though I'm from a completely different
yeah.
culture, series of practices. So that's part of why I love this. And it's so odd to me that a lot of folks in the Western magical space right now are not, let's say, interested or don't realize that there is such a breadth of occult practice worldwide that is interesting and compelling and closer to perhaps what we're interested in or what we're doing or what we're seeking than many people kind of realize. It's interesting. So thank you for making this work available. So I think it's very beneficial to a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah, we were very lucky to have Nikolai produce those works at that critical juncture. I think they were really important stuff. And of course, Nikolai was like has a Brazilian wife,
Yes, he
and
lives in
and
Brazil.
lives in Brazil. And then we were also fortunate to later publish the very slim but powerful work by
Julie.
Giulio Cesar Oddi, Magister Officiorum, which is again in that working.
Solomonic magic, but with a strong influence.
Yeah,
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 from Brazilian.
from Brazilian practices. So there's still a lot more to come through. That will happen, I think. That will happen, I think, over the next decade or so as more of those practitioners come online, because still many of them haven't come online even. And also the language barrier means that,
And also secrecy and
secrecy.
vows
Yeah,
within
yeah,
traditions mean that there's limits to what you can share as well. But
Yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
we see the feedback loop happen, sorry, with for example, Palomayombe. So people in America often find that they've been initiated into Palomayombe and they haven't been told anything. Like they're kind of completely like a loose end because they haven't received the information from their tata, because perhaps they haven't had the full initiation. And so we sell a lot of copies of Palomayombe to American Palo initiates who are like trying to see the extent and the depth of their tradition. So to get Nikolai's perspective on it, I think it's been really valuable.
no, it's incredible, incredibly important. What was
Mm.
the response to the publication of a lot of those works, like the Palo book, for instance, which I loved personally. It's
Mm.
my favorite
yeah,
one.
it's so long ago, I can't
Well,
remember.
there's a mix. Nikolai was concerned because like it's a community, the Palo community is notoriously quite like fractious and and things can get a little bit hot. But we haven't had any bad reactions to it. I think everything's been taken in the spirit in which it's been presented, which has been, as respectfully to these traditions as we possibly can be. Yeah,
Yeah,
so there will be, yeah, there will be, I think there will be more work on Palo will eventually come forward and like be added to this.
yeah.
But we were very fortunate to be able to put this in front of Western practitioners, and I think it's helped enrich their practice as well as saving some things, because when you look at oral cultures, a good example of this would be rural Ireland. Um, they have a rich oral folk culture, and then television comes along, and within 10 years, they're left with nothing because everyone's forgotten it. People have forgotten the songs, people have forgotten the stories, the entire thing collapses. And when you see communities, even like Palo and Santeria, like they can be very, very quickly eroded in their native state.
And I think it's so important to remember that books, like these are oral traditions and they're passed on through, that there are so many variation in how different groups teach or communicate these traditions. Books aren't the primary way that is communicated.
Yeah.
So that's something where the West diverges from, say, African traditional religions. So we put a lot more emphasis on a sort of a literary heritage, whereas the African traditional cultures do not. And so the book can't be reified as the most important aspect of one of these, but it can help support these cultures when like the world is changing and things are shifting into, different, like as Peter was saying, like loss of culture and so on. It's part of that maybe process of not everything being lost. And
Yeah, I think the concern is always that people will pick up a book like this in the way that they pick up like a Llewellyn book on, Celtic witchcraft or whatever nonsense they put out. Not all of Llewellyn's rubbish, not throwing shade at other publishers, but and think that they can read a book and own the tradition. And like the concern with living traditions and the diaspora traditions is that people would read the books and go, oh well, now I'm
Now I
gonna
know
now I'm
all
gonna
of
put a feather in my cap and call myself
It's
a
about
Polero.
really communicating the respect for the traditions and to go to the sources and
Yeah.
learn from there, but to give some initial like
Yeah.
ground into that world and a
Yeah.
different way of thinking.
And we can see, prominent people within the Western magical community who've engaged with this material and then gone and sought
Initiations
initiation in the traditions
directly.
directly, because for some people that's what speaks to them. They find something and they realize that
They pursue
that's
that.
the magic that they wish to pursue.
Absolutely. And so speaking of pursuit, I'm curious, how do you guys build your catalog? And do you pursue, let's say, new authors, or do people tend to pursue you guys?
They come to us.
And so how do you decide whose work you feel like putting all the time, energy, and attention behind?
Has a lot to do with chance, just if we actually in a moment when we can take on new work.
Mm.
So a lot of it is that we've had to say no to really good
We
work
say no to good work.
because we're just like in a position where we have 2 years worth of work on our books already and in process, and so we don't have the time to commit to something because it is really in-depth work working with an author on text. So yeah, it's sometimes just simply a matter of timing. It's as simple as that. So
And
and then we have to personally respond to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so it's highly personal and like wildly eclectic. So we've never made a single decision based on the money.
Based on
It's always
what do
about
we want next? It's more just intuitively
yeah.
following a current and working with people and seeing where it goes.
And we have the freedom to do that. So
Yeah.
we can publish, the work of a crazy postmodern philosopher like Jason, or
Okay.
or we can publish a Mutus Liber by Ius Lertus, and because the work speaks to us, it touches us, like it delights us, and like we want to make
us. And it's
we
also
want to make a range of exciting and
yeah.
delightful books.
There are so many publishers now covering like so many aspects of the tradition, which has really exploded in the last 10 years or so. But I think I don't feel any pressure to publish everything or do everything. I feel much more that I want to pursue deeply things I'm interested in and that we respond to. And so it's just to kind of freed us because there are so many other people doing work as well, and serious work to just, I don't know, maybe be more eclectic even, to sort of put some of the more left field things out there and to show that the Western tradition can be, that that practitioners in our tradition should consider more than just like a small slither of
Mm.
thought, but embrace more eclectic and far-reaching ideas and methods as well, like art as a way of communicating. Ius's last book on Ariton is just so transporting and immersive, but there's almost no words in it. It requires you to just spend time staring into the images, and it's something that for me again, it's about getting away from the digital realm and just being in the presence of work and immersing yourself in it. So it's a lot about changing the pace of the way we engage with work and what we think about how we nurture this sort of spirit within us, the spirit that talks to the unseen.
Yeah.
It's receptive to that. And so I think Ius's work really speaks to that kind of part of what I think it needs to be pushed a little harder in the West. Yeah, we can get too analytical and too in our heads, and yeah, I like to be more artistic as well in my own processes, so I really like that work.
Yeah, but if you're a writer and you love our books, and like you dream about having a book published by Scarlet Imprint, then the important thing is that you have the dream that makes you produce a work. It doesn't matter whether we publish it or we can publish it. or not. It's the fact that people are inspired to do it, because to finish a manuscript, to complete a manuscript is murder. I mean, like writing writing is such a difficult thing to do. And like anyone who sends a book to us or sends a chapter of a book or a proposal to us, I'll always send them a polite reply, and I'll give them advice and feedback if it isn't right for us, what they can do with it. Um, because it's tough, it's tough to be a writer. It's tough to send off books and like feel that you've had a door slammed in your face, or to have decided that this is where my book will go. And it's like, well, you can't always have that happen for you. You can't always have that happen. But the process of doing it, the process of doing the work is like such a reward, because so few books ever make it through.
Yep.
I mean, if we're working like flat out and like Alkistis has run ragged and like, everything's falling apart, but we're getting the books out, we can do 4 books a year. Like that's
So
with,
so few.
and that's nothing, you know? So when you say 20 years, it's like, yeah, it's 20 years, but like it's
Just 50 books.
it's just it's not a huge number of books on the cosmic scale of things, because they're so labor intensive,
Yeah.
you know.
But it comes across in the works though, because they're all so alive and well considered. And my background is also in design. And so each of them to me is such a gorgeous, like beautiful object. And I love that both the inside and outside to me feels so well considered and
Wow, that's
lovely.
really
And if I could think of one thing that's a through line with all the Scarlet Imprint books that I've encountered, it is that sense of aliveness, of spirit, even if it is from drastically different ends of the magical or cultural spectrum.
that's very much a part of my design process. I spend a lot of time with the text, and I have a sort of vision. I have a vision of what it's going to be at the beginning, and I spend a long, long time refining that through the process of working on the text.
Mm.
And I eventually get to a point where that initial image, it's like a dream image. And you know that you bring something out of a dream, it's still hazy and you know what's there, but you can't make out the details. And then when I feel like I've done it well, the book is out of the dream and it's there in hard and I can see the details and something has come through. And it's a living thing because I design with these principles of living structure. I design with the principle of like the sort of harmony and balance. This is just I couldn't do it any other way because I'm not I'm, I'm just an obsessive and I'm an artist before I'm a book designer. So yeah, I just put all of um that part of myself into birthing a text in the world. And it's really hard, but it's also very satisfying to send them out and to see them I don't people seeing them reach people and touch people and seeing people with them. I really like it makes it worthwhile, all the pain.
Would you say
Yeah.
that's the most meaningful aspect of running Scarlet Imprint for you is just to have seen the books have an impact on others, or is there something else that really drives you?
Oh gosh, that's a really strange question. How do you feel?
I'm delighted to be able to get people's work out for them
Mm.
in a way that
Yeah.
brings through the vision of the book that they hoped would exist.
Or
Mm.
even that they couldn't imagine
You
for
know,
themselves, but
yeah.
they knew that there was something there, and it's nice to be able to see something in the text that an author has presented, the raw text, and just respond to that and bring through something maybe even they hadn't fully seen about it. And because our authors are magicians, for the most part, or magically like work in very magical ways, like Jason Mohage, um, practitioners definitely. Um, I feel that the contact with spirit is really deep with all of them. And so the book itself has to be able to transmit to the reader something of that world behind the text that went into making the text that the author himself distilled or herself distilled to brought back from the dream world and from ritual and put into writing, which itself is, as Peter said, hard enough. And then my job, I feel that I have to move that into a manifest form that can then go out and do its own thing in the world. I do feel that when we like release a book, that it's become its own thing and we kind of let go of it. We kind of just say the book now has everything it needs. It's like a little baby lizard that's come out of a egg. It has everything it needs to survive in the world. I've done my job and I can move on to the next one. And so there's that kind of feeling of this can just go and do its work out there now. And I like that sort of connecting the spirits of an author's practice to his
Mm.
audience, her audience, and just allowing that current to pass through us. And our job is to somehow turn that into something that is powerful and does contain the numen of the entire experience that the text
Yeah,
captured.
I love.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's like a channeling, I suppose, in a way. Like Peter, do you have
Well,
anything to add to that, or?
it feels like that, yeah. You?
I think it's so nice when like you get an order come through and you see someone's picked three different books and you look at the juxtaposition of the books and you look at the address and you see someone living somewhere that you've never been to on the far side of the world and you think,
Oh,
I
wow.
wonder, I wonder what this will do to them, you know?
Mm,
I wonder how their life will be changed by the experience of these
Or
books,
what it means.
or not, or whether they'll
Focus.
pass them on and they'll go somewhere else and they'll end up in a secondhand bookshop and another person will pick up the book
Yeah.
and like
This is part of the book
it's the
having its own
wonderful thing
life.
about
I
the book
think
having
it
its own,
keeps going.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just exciting to see the books arrive in far off places or being
Yeah,
read and
yeah, and
yeah.
to meet people as well, when
Yeah.
you're at a conference somewhere and someone comes up and they say, "Oh, I read this book and it changed my life," or it's amazing to see,
Yeah, the human contact afterwards is amazing. That's really so cool. Like when we went to a culture, we were speaking to people that had our books, and it was just so nice because you're talking to people who've really spent time with material you've spent a lot of time with too. And that just feels like they're already friends before you even like know who anything about them
Mm,
really. There's something that you know you share. And that's kind of amazing that there is this almost a sort of like a mycelium. There's something
yeah.
underneath us all
yeah.
that's connecting people.
And this is a very small community. Like globally, this is a very
Mm.
small community because we're not making mass market books. Like we're not on the bookshelves of like the big bookshops. This is a
Specialist
very
and
specialist group of people,
obsessive.
who are on various journeys at various stages of that journey, and it's really special to be able to get that book to them in the way that when I started off in the occult, it wasn't possible to like go on the internet and buy all of the grimoires in like
Or
in a
just
couple of
download
clicks
them.
or download them. And it was impossible. You couldn't do this. We were working off the books that we could find in secondhand bookshops. We were working off like recommendations for friends. We were working off small printed catalogs. This is a very different world.
But also the mainstream is so utterly barren. And now, like every year, more and more, it's just devoid of like real creative passion
Yeah.
and necessity. And our books and other books really like our little motto is long live heresy. It's something that I heard that Pier Paolo Pasolini said, so I'll take that. But it's that there has to be the magicians are people who are living on the margins, even if they have a job and everything. Something about their life means that they don't believe the mainstream narrative about things. And so they've turned their back on that, even if they have to have a foot in both worlds and live in it in order to earn a living and to sort of maintain relationships in the world. They're still about nurturing this interior space that is not colonized by all of the dross of like Disney and Netflix and all of the mainstream crap that they just churn out. It's about believing that an individual, like two individuals, can make something over 20 years. And if we can do it, then other people can do it too. You can make this space for yourself. You can put all your energies. There's only so much that one person can do. So we never wanted to be everything or be huge, but to really put everything intensely into creating something unique, something only we could do. And I want other people to be able to feel the power to do that themselves and to not feel that they have to believe or live in this like monstrous reality that's being created around us by the powers that be, the people that have money and so on. Just you can do this any way that you need to, but it's possible to create a, a spiritual freedom, which I think is so missing from what people have. Like the entire idea of a spirit world is denied by the mainstream or just presented in the most ugly terms. And so, yeah, we're heretics. We're heretics, and we're trying to make a space for more heretics and to feed them and grow little baby heretics. Because it's also about passing something on to the next generation. Can't we do this forever? So I want more people to be inspired and go forwards and keep taking the work forwards and in ways only they can. You know.
I love that. I think one of the things I've noticed over the years in the magical space, and I've taught a lot of newbie witches and all of the sort, I find a lot of people are almost afraid to build their own practice that is 100% unique to them. And it's like if they don't read it in a book first, they're almost
Yeah.
afraid to try things or afraid to kind of get their magical hands dirty a little bit and carve their own path. And what I really love about the work that you guys are doing is it does show so many unique perspectives that isn't just, and again, no shade to Llewellyn, whatever, but there are a lot of kind of, same, Wicca this, Wicca that, blah, 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 where it really is kind of the same thing, just cookie cutter on repeat that has, sometimes it really doesn't have any heart and soul in it, and it's a little bit irrelevant to the
Mm.
day-to-day life that most of us are living in. And unfortunately, I do see like a lot of very curious, excited, complete newbies who have, let's say, the desire, the curiosity, but are so kind of struggling with how do I carve out my own individual practice without, let's say, seeking permission from a Llewellyn book or whatever it is. Like it's something interesting I've kind of observed. And I love that your guys' works are providing a little bit of an example and hopefully some
Hopefully.
it has permission to experiment and try things and to be heretical or very unique or follow their own path, wherever that takes them, and to create something truly uniquely their own spiritually.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's really a central part of what motivates me anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we're filling the gap. We're filling that authority gap because we kind of stepped into the world when the old orders, so like the structures that previously people would have gone to learn magic were really in collapse. I mean, there weren't places that people could go to learn from. So the book the book is something that does that. And in a safer way than finding yourself in some small personality cult with some psychotic high priestess or
A
high
lot of
priest
those.
lording it over you. Like this is not the only way
Wish
to
farming.
learn. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
oddly common that cult of personality within witchy land. It's
yeah,
very odd to me.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's one of the ways that it goes wrong.
Yeah.
yeah. I've
Um,
never been one to join orders or even anything at all. So I was just temperamentally completely incapable of doing things any other way than I do. So maybe people can see that I've somehow managed to survive and figure things out. So there is a way through, even for like extreme individualists with
Yeah,
yeah.
weird personalities.
No, I
yeah.
feel that very lone wolf vibes for me in a lot of ways. So it's always nice to connect with other people who are kind of dancing to the beat of their own drum, not to use the most cliche phrase ever, but I think it does hold some weight for many of us.
I also think, just to add to that, that because so much had broken down in terms of spirit contact in the West, that there has to be a place for people to be able to spontaneously connect and still find the guidance and a way through without like frazzling themselves or going crazy or going mad, all of the things that can go wrong when you're without guidance. Like, I think it's important if you can have a teacher to go to people who can give you good advice. And you can even learn from bad teachers or bad people, because part of learning is encountering bad gurus and realizing and trusting your gut and like finding your way in the jungle. But there still has to be a place for people that don't have access. I never had the means to be initiated or find a teacher, but I did meet very interesting people who gave me something, gave me clues, gave me advice at certain points in my life. And so I was blessed by that, and I managed to find my own way. And I think that, especially in this sort of breakdown of culture that we're going through, there still has to be a way for people to self-ignite and then to be able to take that spark and nurture it and not just burn out. And so I'm saying to those people, you can do it. You can do it, and you can become a light in the world and help other people and bring something through that builds something stronger. But that has to be done right. And so I think we have to lead that by example and by just producing material that gives people a grounding in a wider perspective, in multiple perspectives about how to go about things.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is always a place for like a beginning book, an early starting book, or the thing that you come into often you will come into contact with the book in your local giant bookstore. So it's going to be a Llewellyn book, but it doesn't necessarily end there, but that could be the thing that wakes you up and makes you feel like, am I a witch? So, so there's a place for all these things. Like, it is not like one is better than another. It's just different points in life and different, trying to do different things.
Mm. No, I love that. And
Mm.
in all this years of printing all these books, which one or two, if you had to pick, I know it's going to be tough, probably, which one or two would you feel has lit that spark in the most people? Like, which book do you feel you guys get the most emails about saying this book really meant a lot to me and did a lot for me?
I think it was Apocalyptic Witchcraft and the Red Goddess. But we get feedback from all the books. They all speak to different people, but the feedback we have had the most from is the Red Goddess and Apocalyptic Witchcraft.
Mm.
I think, Peter.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. Um,
I don't mean to just say it's Peter's books, but like we get from all the books we have like really strong responses from people.
um, I would I would talk about Gordon White's books, um, but the difference is so Starships is a brilliant book, and um, Animistic I think is one of the most important magical books that will be written in this
21st
century.
century.
But people tend to come to Gordon having encountered him on podcasts and like having consumed like a huge amount of like long form content. So the way that people come to that book,
Deeply immersed
they're
in
deeply
his
immersed in Gordon's
world.
world. So it's a little bit different. Whereas hopefully I'm not too ubiquitous on the internet, so people tend to come to the text.
We've had so many responses to both Apocalyptic Witchcraft and the Red Goddess where it's just utterly transformed
Yeah.
people's lives.
Yeah.
And they've also been the most controversial in on the internet. So there are books that people will like to say very like nasty things about and stuff, or criticize Peter for like writing about a goddess and things as though, men can only be devotees of gods. It's like completely stupid. It's not what happens in Tantra. I mean, everybody's a devotee of the goddess and the god. And it's just mean-spirited and defensive. I think it's people defending their egos from what a force like Babylon brings into the world and asks of them. But both Apocalyptic Witchcraft and the Red Goddess have had, from the feedback we've received, just utterly transformative effects on people's lives. So,
but there are also a lot of people who've been very powerfully transformed by engaging with Jake Stratton-Kent's work.
and he also transformed, I think, the entire, like an entire cadre of practicing magicians. There
Yeah.
was a generation that had to respond to his work with the True Grimoire and Geosophia. Geosophia started as a footnote to the True Grimoire when he was trying to answer the question that the Triumph of the Moon sort of posed, which is like, what is our tradition then if it's not Margaret Murray?
Yeah.
So I think that had a massive impact on an entire generation of grimoire magicians.
Yeah.
And beyond.
And I think what Jake also did was he gave the example of what happens if someone sticks to one book and just pursues the path of one magical book and the spirits within that book. Like how deep does it go? How does
deep
that
do you go?
journey unpack for people? Because you get a lot of people who are kind of paralyzed by choice.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the modern problem, is that people are so overwhelmed by the amount of information, by the amount of material, by the amount of books, that the idea that they could stop and they could say, I'm going to follow this practice and this book for
2 years,
2 years, and then decide whether I wish to continue that or not, or whether I've learned the lesson simply from having committed myself to something. I think Jay gave a very good example
of commitment,
of someone doing that.
And obsession.
And an intellectual rigor, and it's Jake's work is direct. There's no fat on it. Like it's demanding, and some people need that. Like some people will read my work and go, I'm not sure I really need to like read English literature. I don't think I need this language. I don't think I need the poetry. I just want the raw stripped down thing. And if people want that, then Jake is the go-to, because that's who he was. He was like he was a lean, spare, intellectually driven, self-taught,
he
radical
was a
individual.
Great autodidact, and there's a really big place for that in magic, because also the education system is compromised like irreparably now. And I mean that at every level, from like tots all the way up into the heights of the academy. It's all
I would agree.
Yeah. So
I agree.
that intellectual inquiry that Jake carried out through his entire life, it was all self-directed. He was an autodidact in the best sense, and where there are weaknesses, it's simply because the academy doesn't even allow open access to material that has been publicly funded anyway. Like, there should be a much bigger sharing of what the academy has where it's good, rather than just the reproduction of ideology, which is what it seems to be about largely now. And yeah, I think magic is the place for that. I think magic is a great place for that, because we are also operating in this sort of like heretical space. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I agree completely. As someone who has done way too much grad school, it's wild how much you're not allowed to do in an educational institution these days, but I don't want to rant about that. I would love to hear a little bit more about Apocalyptic Witchcraft, Peter, because that's one of my favorite books of all time, I would say. Like, love it, love it. Like, what was the inspiration behind that, and what was your process of writing it, and what impact do you feel it's had in the occult space more broadly?
Oh, that was a crazy book. How did that start? Did I
Try to
push?
get it out without knocking over my tower of books.
You had written some work on Ted Hughes. You were writing something about the state of witchcraft.
Yeah.
That was the first chapter in there. That was a talk you gave that you were then developed. And then you started to want to put together the entire through poetry.
Yeah,
I do feel that.
it was a crazy book.
He was possessed for a period.
It was a crazy
He
book.
was possessed for a period and just writing.
And it came through as it wanted to. So
Yeah.
very often writers will sit down and they'll plan a book. So they'll have the chapter list and they'll have the things that they want to tick off, and they'll have a word count, and they'll have an idea of the audience. And this was nothing like that. This was a wild text in the way that it came through. So I'd written a piece called Rewilding Witchcraft.
No, that was later, wasn't
Later.
it?
No, I
Yeah.
don't know. I wrote Rewilding Witchcraft earlier. No,
Did
I
you?
did. Yeah.
Oh,
And I wrote the Ted Hughes piece,
that was for Mandragora
or another
initially.
book that was initially that's published in there as A Spell to Awaken England, and that was published first of all in Mandragora, and there was clearly a seam there. There was something that I needed to follow. There was something that needed to be explored. And so apocalyptic witchcraft kind of poured out in these strange kind of sequence of essays and work and all of the
We were working with blood as well and looking at the work of Penelope Shuttle and Peter Redgrove, and then sort of back into texts like Chris Knight's what's that?
blood relations.
Blood Relations, and sort of piecing together the sense of sort of the blood mysteries behind it and the menstrual aspects and the connection of blood and spirit.
Yeah.
Do you think? It's a strange thing. Like I don't know, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, it's a funny, haunted kind of dream of a book that just emerged, and I really just trusted the process with it. I knew that I had to do this. I knew I had to write this form of. I knew I had to like express what it was that I felt about witchcraft, that I felt about my experiences, and the things that I saw were missing in the way that witchcraft had developed and emerged. I think Wicca, for example, looks very different in the UK than it does in America.
I think in America it's called British traditional
British tradition.
Wicca or
Yeah.
witchcraft. It's something completely different.
Yeah.
I think as well there was a kind of controversy, not exactly a controversy, but a rivalry in England between Wicca and traditional witchcraft or traditional craft. And they were sort of like arguing over what's more authentic or something. And I think the first essay on apocalyptic witchcraft, like the opening essay, was sort of addressing that and trying to find a way through that conflict
Mm.
and understanding where those different perspectives came from and how traditional witchcraft or traditional craft was constructed and what were the currents that emerged out of as opposed to Wicca and Gardner. And so it kind of came out of finding a third path through that.
I mean, a lot of people in our generation were very taken by Paul Hewson's Mastering Witchcraft, and Paul's work. There's there there's some flavour of that in apocalyptic witchcraft. That that's informed a lot of the counter currents and the counter threads. And I've looked more and more at the world of witchcraft in England, and it's a funny thing. And I think it's difficult to understand entirely from the outside what's going on. I know you've been to the Museum of Witchcraft in Boscastle. That represents the internal kind of dreamed thought world of Cecil Williamson, and he was with Gardner at the birth of Gardnerian witchcraft, but they were two very different visions of witchcraft that these men had. And Gerald was able to create something which scaled very well.
With the help of Doreen Valiente.
With the help of Doreen Valiente. They created a formula which hit hit the world at a time when there was a big demographic moment. So in the same way that the 60s in America like really exploded because of just the number of like teenagers, like all these kids and all this affluence, and then LSD created boom. The same thing really happened with Wicca. It kind of it came into a world where there was a new demographic where an England which was grey and post-war and repressed
A lot of
suddenly.
yeah, like the repeal of the Witchcraft Act
Yeah.
and also the sort of decline in influence of the church through the two world wars had left like a sort of spiritual void
Mm.
for the youth especially. And so Wicca and the rise of this the return of the goddess in a way as the feminine divine principle, there was a space for that post-war. And I think that's kind of part of that current. And then traditional craft has much more the return of the male aspect in
Yeah.
counterpart to the more goddess heavy Wicca.
Yeah.
So
And and there are aspects of that which have come from genuine folk practice and traditions. I mean, famously looking at something like the toad bone that Andrew Chumley made very popular, probably too popular. Um, and the Horseman's Word, and then like Michael Howard and Andrew were able to really and if you read the early witchcraft magazine that
the
Michael Howard
cauldron.
was putting out, the Cauldron, you
Cauldron, I
see,
have a bunch of those, yeah.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
you see them construct traditional witchcraft. So traditional witchcraft really is something that emerged in what, the 80s, like that's
Tentatively.
whereas I think that you can date Wicca and the traditions that fed into Wicca to probably the 1940s, maybe. That's probably it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, these are all inventions. These are all creative inventions, and that's what humans do. And sometimes it can be sometimes it can be distressing when you discover that things are perhaps not as ancient as you thought they were. I mean, this is what happened when Ronald Hutton produced The Triumph of the Moon.
Yeah.
And when he got that into the community, that split things very much. There were people who saw their worldview collapse because they thought that they were doing something that was ancient and traditional, and they suddenly discovered that it was the invention of a few bunch of
Eccentric.
a few eccentrics, you know. Um, but that forgets the fact that even the most inauthentic practices can end up with a connection to spirit. That connection can be forged. Um, and so, yeah, I feel, you know, I have very mixed feelings about witchcraft. It's such a complicated thing, and
Mm.
it's so difficult. It's so difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
And there are elements of it that I think it's not appropriate to talk about, um, given given how much of witchcraft traditionally is really associated with more of the malefica,
Mhm.
like things that you don't want to talk about. And so apocalyptic witchcraft kind of like framed all of these things as a it creates more of a cohesive poetic whole for people to like engage with the myth of witchcraft. It's not proposing like a something that people can follow, but it's giving them like ways into the dream of witchcraft,
Yeah.
uh, which and ways of accessing the Sabbath and ways of having that experience that I think is at the root of it.
Yeah. I love that. And it's so funny because a lot of what you're talking about, I feel a large proportion of the like witchcraft community on the internet like has no idea and will have had no idea about anything that you just said. And
Yeah,
for me, that's like kind of mind blowing in a way. It's like you don't have to look that far to find it.
yeah,
All of what you've just said, like Michael Howard, the cauldron, the traditional craft stuff, it's around, but a lot of people just have no idea even about this most basic diversity of practice, diversity of conversation within the space. Recently, I think it was just last year, some academic press put out the Witch Studies Reader, and I did unfortunately spend my time reading it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking
that's all
about.
your
We
review.
saw the review.
I was not into it. That's the short version, and it's crazy how it as you guys probably saw me talk about, it's just the goddess stuff, it's just the Wicca, it's just the this, and it's become this vessel for people to push this kind of feminist, one particular type of feminist
Yeah.
ideology.
Yeah.
And it's really not what witchcraft is about, I think, in general.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
look at it in any kind of holistic, multifaceted way.
Yeah.
So it bugs me a little bit that that is kind of the one note that a lot of people, unfortunately, think about when they
Yeah.
think about what is witchcraft. It's just the top of the water. They don't dive with any depth. They don't even go up to their knees, and it bugs me a little bit, I must say.
I would say though that I think that will be the version that will just be forgotten very quickly.
It will.
Passes out of fashion. I think the relief with things that are like in fashion is that they get out of fashion very quickly, and it's just going to be a matter of years, and they will seem those people will move on to the next thing.
The next trend. Yeah.
Yeah, next trend, and that those ideas won't stand the test of time or even practice and anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me a lot of it is it's kind of an American performative response to like Trump derangement syndrome. It's all identity based rather than based on any form of like spirituality. It's an attempt to create a robust identity that stands against like the most cartoonish idea of patriarchy imaginable. It's
Mm.
yeah, and with a one size fits all like dungaree politics. It's just like it's retarded. It's but it I mean, and I'm not allowed to say that either.
That's
So
okay. That's okay. Safe
it's
space.
okay.
Okay.
Straight my man. I can be ignored. Um, yeah, it looks very strange. It looks very strange from here. But we have those elements that fed into witchcraft here. So like a lot of the elders that I know here in the various witchcraft traditions, they were protesting against the nukes at Green and Common. Like they came to their witchcraft
Through feminism.
through feminism and through political activism.
So that goes back to the
So
70s.
it goes back to the 70s
Yeah.
at least. Like it's always an element of it. I think what's so alarming with the current version of it is the degree of orthodoxy that's required of the
Yeah.
people within it in terms of there is one catechism and you cannot
Depart from.
deviate from it.
You can't think for yourself, which is the opposite of being a witch. And
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think
honestly, I have no beef with people wanting to make their witchcraft about a particular type of feminism. But my problem is like if they want to argue that that's the only one way
yeah.
to
Yeah.
like, I don't know if you guys have seen me be controversial on the internet, but I made a post that was like, where's my fellow conservative non-woke witches at? And that blew up. I got basically slammed and I went like viral for being slammed for this. And a lot of people commenting were like, oh, you can't be non-woke and a witch. Like, and I just find that mindset
Yeah.
completely bonkers. Like,
Yeah.
when did witchcraft become wokeness? Like, when did this happen on the internet? And I think you're right. It's a very North American phenomenon that is kind of,
We became aware of it through the internet at some point. Was it maybe about 15 years ago or something? When it
2013 we had the virus came here.
mm,
mind virus.
The imperialist American mind virus from the universities hit here in a bad way. And unfortunately,
It's still here.
it's still here. It still continues. I mean, it's deranged that people can criticize you for your politics whilst believing that their own politics are beyond
Any kind of
reproach.
critique or
very
Whereas
odd.
if I look back, it's like very simple. It's like I can go, okay, so Gerald, what are Gerald Gardner's politics? What are Alexander's politics? What are what are Michael Howard's politics? Many of these people were conservatives.
Mhm.
Many of these people were conservatives, the vast majority. And that doesn't make them evil people, in the same way that being left-wing doesn't make you a good person.
Absolutely.
We're back to this ludicrous hard political binary from people who claim that the binary is something they're trying to get away from.
Yeah, it's very odd, isn't it? And I think arguments could be made around any kind of politics being supported by a witchcraft ethos. I could see arguments on both sides of the spectrum. I could see arguments from wherever. But for me, my issue is when it just becomes this one note thing, and then the community kind of begins to eat itself and forget what it is we're even talking about or supposed to be talking about, which is witchcraft, magic, spirit contact, what's effective, what works, and all of this. And it's interesting to me to what extent a lot of that has kind of fallen by the wayside, at least in online occult spaces, and been replaced by this kind of orthodox ideology that if you
Yeah,
a little bit from, you're evil or excommunicated.
yeah,
It's unfortunate to me, and I
yeah.
see books as a bit of a beacon out of that. Hopefully, maybe that's a bit naive on my part, but
Yeah.
I want to hope that we can move away from that culture online. And I don't know what you guys think about that or what the way out of that
Well,
is.
there are a few problems. One of the problems is simply the structure of the internet, is that the online social media space offers a whole series of perverse incentives for people.
Mm.
So it's very, if you are, it's an attention economy. So the more attention you have, the more popular you are, the more money you make, the more clicks you get, blah blah blah. So to create controversy or controversialize other people within your field becomes the shortcut to power.
Yeah.
So,
Resources.
like, you're a published author, like, you're an attractive woman. You have all of these things that people want to destroy about you and gain for themselves. And the problem is that the incentives of the internet mean that they will continue to do that, um, because everyone else is too frightened to intervene,
Mm,
because the risk to them, the risk to their own personal social capital, and their risk of being ostracized is so high that they're frightened of saying anything. Like,
mhm.
it's this fear thing.
Fear is controlling a
And
lot of the
fear is
behavior.
controlling a lot of the behaviors, because I see people and I see the politics that they say that they believe in, and I know who they are, and I know those are not their politics.
Mm,
They're simply lying through their teeth.
mhm.
They're lying through their teeth for, like,
For
for
social
for
reasons.
social
Total.
reasons. Social
Mm.
reasons. And
And
I see it all the time.
are
And
these like creators in the witchy occult space or more?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, creates in the occult and witchy spaces. Like, they don't have those politics, but the power that identity politics gives to people is the ability to divide. It never unites people. It
No.
never brings people forward. It never actually challenges the roots of power. It never deals with tyranny. It just
Actual
imposes a
tyranny.
perpetual inquisition. It's this tyranny of small differences. And in a way, that is also witchcraft. Like, one of the negative aspects of witchcraft is
Mm.
that the witchcraft that you do is most often directed against the neighbor that you hate,
The person closest to you
not
who
the lord
has
in the
what
high
you
castle.
envy.
Like, it's the people close to you who you turn your poison on. And this is what I see happening in the online spaces. Um, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult if you're a creator. It's very difficult if you're a writer. It's very difficult if you're a public figure. You simply have to go through the fire.
Yeah, I think it's important to pass through the
You
fire.
have to go through the
And
fire.
then you start to lose the fear, and then
And
you start to find your voice again, and then the people come through to support you.
and so for the haters, who were listening to the podcast to see whether I say something terrible that they can denounce me from, let me speak to you directly. Every time you denounce me,
But there.
I sell more books. I sell more books. You make me rich. Your hatred drives sales and drives interest, because the majority of people do not hold your tiny, narrow perspective on things. And people who know us, the thousands of readers who know us, the people who know us personally, they don't believe your nonsense. They don't believe it. You can call me a racist. You can call me a transphobe, because you don't know me. You don't know me. You're creating a caricature. You're creating a devil. Like, this is destructive for you. This is not a representation of the truth. You're simply ensorcelled. You're trapped in your own small game. So yeah, we all have to deal with the shit.
You have to pass through the
Have to
fire.
pass through the fire. As my friend Gordon would say, you have to become
Invincible.
invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
become
speak your truth.
fearless.
Yeah.
Speak
Speak
the
your
truth.
truth.
I think now it's more important than ever. I really do. I think it's time, like I'm finding my voice again after being sort of very back for 5 years or so. The COVID thing really, I felt so that through the lockdown, very disempowered in many ways. And I was going through menopause as well, perimenopause at the same time. So it was both like, and a lot of family issues. So it was a very difficult time for me. And I just completely stepped back from anything on the front line. And I went through like a few cancellations online, which were progressively easy because you just pay less and less attention to it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you start to find who you are and what's important. You find the ground within yourself that you operate from and who you actually are. And I think all of the people playing the internet games for social credit are very lost, very lost. They don't have that access to the spirit, to their inner depth, to the real world. The politics itself is just a distraction now, left and right. These are meaningless games just being played on us. So yeah, I'm not participating in any of that. I don't have any of the views ascribed to me by the people that have made all these, and they never speak to me. They don't know me, so I don't really care what they think. It's just it's irrelevant to me. Yeah.
I agree with that. And thank you both of you for saying all of that. And Peter, I love what you said directly to the haters as well. And I couldn't agree more with all of that. And I think the current moment requires, I think, a certain fearlessness and a
Yeah.
commitment to selfhood and a commitment to authenticity, whatever other people have to say about it. Like this
Yeah.
moment seems to ask that from us, especially those of us in this space. And if we can't do that as magicians or occultists or witches, then like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I
Like,
think
what are
this
we
is the
doing?
time we find out who we are as well. I mean, we really have to become something now, not just act these things, but really mean what we are doing.
And I think
Come to that deep place, authentic and
absolutely. Yeah. And it strikes me too that this ideology that's kind of taken over a lot of things, it's so concerned with victimhood
mm,
Yeah.
and pain and suffering and grievance. And to me, that seems at least somewhat diametrically opposed to like what occultism and witchcraft and magic
um,
is kind of about in a sense. It isn't about being this, at least to me, it's not about being this perpetual victim. Woe is me. I have no
mm,
power. Boo hoo. Like that really isn't for me what witchcraft or magic or any of it should be
yeah,
about. It's a lot more about, okay, what can I do? How can I
yeah,
how can I transform? How can I take this pain or this suffering or this misfortune and transmute it into something powerful and
Yeah.
steady and raw and real and all of that? And so to me, it just seems so odd that so much of the conversation of this kind of victim-oriented ideology has infected something that
yeah,
really isn't about or shouldn't be about victimhood
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
all.
It's
Let's
the
just
opposite.
be
It's
honest.
about self-sovereignty. It's about self-sovereignty. It's about having that that power. It's about having that strength in yourself. And when you see people attacking these things, it simply shows you their shadow.
Yeah.
It shows you their
you see
shadow.
their shadow there. That's it. Um, uh, Someone wrote to Peter recently saying how much apocalyptic witchcraft meant to him, and that it was the book that shows what we do in the world where there aren't churches anymore, when all of the order has collapsed and one has to find one's own path, like directly in the land and with spirit. And this is, I think, the important thing. Like, we have to be prepared to be sovereign, but also resilient in a world which is collapsing and which is undergoing massive transformation. Things are not going to stay the same. The conservatives will find that the world they want to hold on to is disappearing, however hard they hold on to it. And the radical progressives, as they like to think themselves, are going to find that the world that they're imagining is not what they're going to get either. So
Yeah.
this keeping that center, keeping that core, keeping your spirit alive and in communion with the other spirit allies that you have developed relationships with through all the realms the underworld, the upper worlds. This is the core of witchcraft. Witchcraft really now should be a way of how do we find our way when there isn't an order to help us, when there isn't a church and a structure that's going to look after us. We're going to have to be out there in the wilds on our own, spiritually, and doing the right thing in communion with the other beings.
When we have to, looking at that with just health, the
Yeah.
idea that you're responsible for your own health. This is a witchcraft idea.
Mm.
This is when did witchcraft go from saying we shouldn't be giving
Dependent on the
everyone
state.
Ritalin to saying drugs are the answer and everyone should take the COVID shot? Like, this is deranged. This
Yeah.
is insanity. Like, all of these things are skills which witches should have. Witches should be healthy. Yes, many witches are sick.
Or working
And
towards it.
that healing journey is part of the witchcraft.
I've been sick all my life, but I've never been dependent on the state medical system. I've found my own way to manage my health.
Yeah.
This is how, like, sickness is itself the teacher.
Mm.
Sickness, like, I'm not saying for some things you will need the, like, specialist care perhaps, but a lot of the time people, because they feel sad, because they have depression, because they can't cope with something, they self-medicate or they take prescription drugs and they avoid going through the process. You have to pass through the fire. You have to go through the sickness itself will teach you. Your body will teach you. You have to return back to the body. The body will speak to you when you listen to it, when you accept it, when you accept your own body and who you are in the world and allow it to show you the way to find your equilibrium again, to find who you are and then to flourish.
Yeah.
Because once you've stabilized this sort of self-destructive cycles that many, many people in the modern world are engaged in, then you can start to find out who you can become, who you can grow into, and not have to construct your identity from things you purchase, from things you see online, from things other people have that you want. You start to be able to be the person that you don't even imagine yet you can be. But this has to come from the seed within. And for that to activate, you have to do the first work, which is to listen to the body, to go within and to spend time with that and to go through the fire and the pain and the difficulty and the darkness and the loneliness and the fear. All of that is part of the process of becoming.
Yeah. I agree.
That's witchcraft.
I could not have said it better myself. Like, I agree. And I'm curious if you guys have encountered this, but I find that some people will, let's say, look at me and assume I've not been through anything. So I'm pretty well adjusted and chill now. But I've got my own sob story. I've been through it. I've had health stuff, whatever. I'm not going to get into it, but we all of us have
Yeah. Yes.
grievances, let's say. If we want to mobilize them, we can. But it's interesting to me that there's another choice. And that
Yeah.
choice, in terms of moving through it, getting through it, healing it, transforming it, which is not an immediate gratification process at all.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people now, it seems like in the magic space, choose to not do that and would rather sit with that, I'm this, I'm that, this is all the things that have happened to me. And instead of going through the fire, you say, they just sit there and look for that instant gratification of feeling superior, not through self-transformation, but through just talking shit on the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
This is the identity trap,
Yeah.
because you see it with the incel community where they're unable to escape from the community because to do so is to lose their identity.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if they engage in looks maxing or whatever, they try to like improve themselves in any way, then they're seen as traitors to it, and so they're dragged screaming back into the black pilled hell they live in. And also letting go of those grievances, you perhaps discover that you're not who you thought you were.
Yeah.
You perhaps discover that you're not that interesting or that special, and that you're not that interesting. And you need to sit with yourself and you need to go through that hell. People need to they need to sit with themselves without a phone, without a screen, and
Without
spend some
distraction.
serious time and find their validation elsewhere, find their validation away from the freak machine of social media likes.
Yeah.
you know, and it's tough,
Yeah.
it's hard, which is why very few people are actually witches, and most people are simply cosplayers.
Oh, I could not agree more. I consider a lot of it LARPing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate, but I think that's exactly what's going on, unfortunately. And then it becomes this blind leading the blind kind of situation in a lot of these spaces, which
yeah.
is makes me sad. But what can you do, I guess?
But there's always hope. Like it
Yeah,
can be one thing can happen to someone and just be the key to catalyzing a whole chain of transformation. Like you can't give up on people.
I
yeah,
agree.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, even the LARPers could become the real thing if they just like connect with that core within them. There's no, like, I think we have to move away because I think people are really consumed by self-hatred fundamentally and fear. And so to put more pressure on people by just saying, oh, but you're LARPing or you're just pretending to be a witch, maybe they genuinely believe they are, but there's also like so much fear holding them back from discovering who they actually are. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like labels at all. I've never called myself a witch, and I don't really like it as a term to call oneself. It's more like witchcraft is something you sort of do quietly and you don't speak about and you don't label yourself with it. But um, labels are very important for people now. And I think even then, you can still find that part of their psyche must have been drawn to that,
Mm,
seek some kind of power or validation in it. It doesn't mean that there's not the true person still trying to like break through underneath all of that,
absolutely.
who will connect again with the world as soon as I think it's really important to expose yourself to all cycles of natural light. Like the not just like ordinary daylight, the early morning light is really important. Just flood your eyes and your skin with it. It's also really important to get like the twilight is beautiful and liminal and very special light with so many like wavelengths in it. But also to put yourself under the stars and under the moonlight and actually, you know, speak and dance to the stars and under this radiation. And that will transform you because it will flood your being, like through your eyes, through your pineal gland. It will flood your being with all of this super sensual information that will transform you and get away from computer screens. That's not real. That's not the real world. That's not witchcraft. You have to put yourself in the elements, under the stars, under the moon, under the sun, and just embrace that like wild being and allow your flesh to wake up again. And then it doesn't matter if you're LARPing today, tomorrow you will be a real witch. The process will already be the process will already be germinating within you. You will be allowing the conditions. You have to create the conditions around you
Yeah.
for the seed to start to react. That's all people have to do.
No, I agree with that absolutely. And it's so funny because a lot of the time online there's this insult, like go touch grass. Like if someone seems very disconnected,
Mhm.
it's just in this spiral of talking shit online. And I have told people to touch grass, and it does sound kind of like an insult. But on the flip side, it's like I touch grass all the time. Like, but
It works.
it's like put your feet in the water, get dirty, like get a
Yeah.
suntan, go
And
out,
do things with your hands, like
get out there.
create something, create things, like use these things that make us human.
Yep,
Like get your body active, move, even if it's just walking, but
absolutely.
just like start feeling yourself back in your body again and
Yeah,
pay attention with your all your senses, like the sense of the wind on your skin, things like this. Just start becoming aware of something other than whatever's consuming your thoughts,
yeah.
like whatever's turmoil is going on inside.
Absolutely. I feel like there's a widespread disembodiedness,
Yeah.
yeah,
which I guess is unfortunate. And I think the more people do log off, the more they realize that, well, online can be amazing to have really fruitful, fascinating conversations like the one that we're having right now, and endless other interesting conversations online. But there's that flip side where sometimes people get so sucked into it where they're not working with it for learning or education or connecting meaningfully with people, and then just get sucked into kind of the hate machine of the
Yeah.
internet rather than going and noticing, okay, what are even the plants in my neighborhood? What are these trees? What is that bird song? Can I even identify that
Yeah.
bird in my neighborhood? Where does my food come from? What is the real tactile nature of this land that I personally am on, whether that is downtown skyscrapers or whether that is the beach or the forest or whatever that happens to be. And to me, that seems like such a better way to spend the majority of our time, as you're saying, like just out and about connecting with the spirit and the soul of the land and the earth, wherever that happens to be.
And even if you don't have much time to do that, just doing that gets you away from that sense that the world is just this big.
Yeah.
You know, you know that that exists, and so you can take yourself there in spirit. You can just close your eyes and bring yourself there. Like one of the tools of witchcraft is the imagination. Of magic is it's primary. It's the primary space where
Yeah.
so much of the work happens. So being able to actually open that space up and not have it shrunken by the size of a phone or a computer screen, and just be able to expand your inner world because you have felt what it feels like to be in a vast world and a cosmos that you can't even imagine its limits. That also exists within you. Those there's no limits exist, but they keep going inward as well. And just to have that knowledge can mean that even if you have to spend most of your day at a computer because it's your job and it's how you survive at the moment, you still have access to that inner world that has that space in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you nailed
Love it.
it.
I love it. And to me, this touching grass reminds me a little bit of a note I took when I was rereading The Red Goddess a few months ago, kind of in preps for this chat. And the quote is, "If you've never been in love, put down this book." And I love that because I think, in a way, a lot of a culture these days has forgotten to live life. And it
Yeah.
just happens in this kind of theoretical way rather than in a lived, embodied way, falling in love, making mistakes, getting your foot cut by stepping on a pointy rock on the beach. Like these embodied like risks that we take when we're out living life away from the screen. And I was wondering if you might be able to speak to that line and what it means to you now, because I feel like it does speak to this importance of living in reality and
Yeah.
changing our reality and being embodied, feeling things, taking the risk to feel things, taking the risk to get hurt, taking the risk of fucking up, taking the risk to just live life fully rather than living in this very tiny way that it seems to me like a lot of people are living right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly what you said, Sabrina. It's people are out of touch with their emotions, so they don't realize they don't realize what they're for. They don't realize how deeply they go. They're caught in very shallow, short pornographic loops in terms of their understanding of their bodies and their sexuality and the lives and meaning of others. And the experience of the experience of love, the experience of the beloved is something that all humans can have, but I see so rarely in the world. And it's the most important thing. Like if you don't have that experience of losing oneself and the beloved, then you haven't become truly human.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it's tough because I come, now I feel I come from a previous generation. I feel like I come from a previous age. I mean, it's like weird enough for Americans that like we live in Europe and they expect us to be in a castle or something. But um, coming from before the internet,
We're
like
ancient.
I come from before brands. I come from
Yeah.
before Nike trainers. I come from before McDonald's. Like I come before chain stores. I come from that world, and I've been fortunate enough to live through these many changes of ages, and like I see the state that the youth find themselves in. I see the problems that they face,
The world they've
the
inherited.
world they've inherited, and the traps that have been laid for them by more sophisticated minds that are able to bypass a lot of their better selves and lead them into a race to the bottom of the brainstem by capturing their attention with bright and shiny moving things.
Customers for life.
Yeah.
This is capturing the attention from a very young age.
So my advice starts to sound like an advice from the past, which is like, read a book, fall in love, go for a walk. If you're going to talk to me about witchcraft, where are you? What what
Tell me
tell
what
me
are your
tell me your
plants
plants.
in your
Tell
neighborhood.
me your birds. Tell me your trees. Tell me tell me
Tell
where
me
your
how you
sacred
speak to
places are.
them.
Tell me where the spirits are. Like, tell me who you are. Tell me, tell me what line you come from. Tell me what you've taken from that.
Tell me a story about your family.
You know,
Something more that isn't already
these things are real.
constructed.
These things are real. I don't care what flags you have in your bio. Like, this is nothing. This is meaningless. You've been tricked.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You've been tricked. This isn't even an identity. This isn't even you. These are just clothes that you've put on. And like when you look at witchcraft, like, there's taking your clothes off. There's what does it mean to be naked? What does it mean to confront yourself?
Yeah.
What does it mean to have that knowledge? Because that experience is always there for you. And like, why are you running away from it?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people run away because it's hard.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
messy, and it's not this kind of purity answer that people can easily perform.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
And
and and you can't immediately commodify it. Like, I
Yeah.
I still agonize every time I post a picture on the internet. You know, not because I've taken 300 selfies in a bathroom mirror to see what my ass looks like, but because
why
like
not is my question. No, just kidding.
it's because like
Terribly reserved.
there's you're giving something, I feel you're always giving something away.
Yeah.
Like we struggle to like market like the books that we do because we find it offensive.
We're just so
I find it
old-fashioned.
so I find it so difficult when I see like something comes up like the solstice, and I think, do I even want to mention this? Do I want to move
Or is it
this
something we
from
just
sacred
mark
space
privately?
into a fucking another marketing opportunity? Do I want to say it's the X bullshit new moon is coming up and therefore I'm selling you a course? No, I fucking don't. You know, like this is, I never want to be in a state where my experience, as with ritual, is moving to a third position. If I see someone and they've taken a picture of something, I'm like, you weren't present. You weren't present.
In
You're
the
one of these
moment.
fools that I see at a concert holding your mobile phone up. You're never there.
Yeah.
It's just the screen. And when you die, there will be nothing there. You will have built nothing. You
Yeah.
will have created nothing. You will have found nothing in yourself.
And all your memories will
And
disappear.
all your memories will gone. All the likes will have gone away.
Yeah.
We have this incredible opportunity to do something with ourselves.
In fact, we have to build the new world now.
Yeah.
We have to do that ourselves. If it doesn't come out of ourselves, it will be given for us.
Mm.
We're actually creating it out of our own hands. And in these kind of conversations, galvanizing people to go and do likewise,
Yeah.
then we can use the internet for good. But it's just knowing like what its limits are and how to use it and that it's a tool. It's like Jack's freedom is a two-edged sword. Also, the internet, it's a tool. You have to use it. You have to have a knowledge how to use it correctly, how to use it with like a moral sense. Like I can use this for good,
Yeah.
but also I don't want it to harm. And it's just having that sense of there's an ambiguity to every tool. It's not neutral. It yeah, something like that. something like that. Just
So what do you guys see the new world as being? Like, what would you guys like to see people in the occult, spiritual, witchy, magicy spaces do next if they are going to take what you're saying seriously?
Okay, real world events. Why is there no decent conference in America that could match what the guys are doing with occulture in Berlin? Like, this isn't rocket science, but when you put people in space together, different people with different perspectives, sharing those things, you get rid of a lot of the bullshit.
Hmm.
Because the internet is like, the internet allows you to talk shit about people with no consequences because you never have to confront them.
Absolutely.
Real world, real world keeps people much more honest
and civil.
and civil.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people talking shit who are big on the internet, like if you met them in person, it's just like, what? Like they have no presence or wouldn't even
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
conversation. It's
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah. I think those things are really important. I think the real world coming together is important.
Mm.
Uh, I think I think writing is important. I think even for people who aren't like,
Writing is
capital
thinking.
W writers, like writing is thinking. I
Mhm.
think rediscovering, like just using a pen and paper is a very important thing for people to do in terms of their cognitive and mental health.
Rather than keyboards, like put things in notebooks, use notebooks, sketchbooks. Yeah,
Physical practice is always important. Um, Physical practice is spiritual practice, and it doesn't have to be dressed up like that.
no.
I
Just
think,
that discipline of the devotion to an art and a practice
yeah,
is spiritual practice.
I
I
agree.
think, yeah, and it's like find something and stick at it and go through the hard parts of the learning process and just that the self-knowledge that brings, and also simply the space you open up within you to receive teachings from lineages that are much, much deeper than you could ever imagine.
mm,
Because anything that you learn from person to person, like dance, is coming through a line of bodies.
Mhm.
And even though you won't see maybe the teacher of your teacher, that's still passing through in the transmission. And so any physical practice, a martial art, a dance, pottery, like literally
mm,
anything that you do with your body, any craft, any creative practice that involves learning a craft that requires hours and days and months and years of dedication allows you to also transform and grow. Like in an alchemical sense, you are also creating yourself through the process of learning a craft and being devoted to that. So magic should become in my future world become much more grounded in these things. There was a beautiful thing a friend of mine wrote. He sent me a picture of this Japanese bowl that a friend of his had made, and a master Japanese potter. And he said, like, it was as if there was a whole universe in it, and it was as simple as it had just been made with one gesture. So one gesture encompasses an entire universe, but you can only like really see that after years and years of dedication to it. But just to give yourself the possibility to experience that
Mm.
within yourself and to have that sense of that magical transmission through generations.
yeah,
And through material as well, through the material of clay, for example, through the material of the body or paper or canvas or whatever it is that you choose, that your passion lies in, that itself is like part of the magic of it. So this materiality of magic is going to come to the fore.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think there is this immediate gratification culture, and
Mhm.
a lot of things don't work that way. And so I
Yeah.
think we're talking about with this embodied slow burn type of process, learning a new skill, whether that's dance or pottery or whatever it happens to be, it creates a different span of attention, a different relationship to the body, a different attention to the material.
Mm.
And I think with, let's say, something like pottery, like, and I'm not a potter, so I don't know, but I feel like if I did take a pottery class, that material of clay or whatever it is, it would open itself up to me in a way and
Yeah,
become new because we don't know what we don't know. And every sphere of practice is so,
Mm.
yeah,
there's so much depth. Like right now, the birds to me just sound like birds. But if I went into that realm and spent time with all the bird watchers in my neighborhood, that would become so much more
yeah,
deep and multifaceted. And I've not to sound like a total hippie, but I feel like the world is so deep and
yeah,
multifaceted.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
something as simple as like it's just clay or it's just a bird song. It's never just that ever. And
yeah,
I feel like taking the time and attention and intention to do these kind of embodied slow burn, skill building, exploratory practices, like it really just does open up the world a lot
yeah,
Yeah.
more. And to me,
Yeah.
that is such a magical practice as well. So I
yeah,
love
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Agree.
that. No, I love that. We are pretty much 2 hours of babbling. I feel like there's so much more I want to ask you guys. But I also want to be respectful of your time and not talk your ear off for like 1,000 years. Um, One of the last things I wanted to ask you guys was about your personal practices at the moment, whatever it is you feel comfortable sharing. I know personal practice is often just that, very personal. I don't share much of mine online, so I'm totally with you guys on that if you don't choose to share that much. But what is present for both of you in your personal spiritual practice at the moment, however explicitly magical that is, or however more mundane that is?
Um, I'm spending a lot of time on the land.
Mm,
So the last year I've been spending a lot of time with the ancestors in the land. So I've been doing work predominantly with the Bronze Age dead in the land here.
mm,
We essentially live in a giant cemetery. I've been writing a lot about this on my Substack.
mm,
Um, I've recently been spending more time with the oldest layer in the landscape. So when the ice retreated here, we had the Mesolithic hunters came from Europe and they were followed by the Neolithic peoples. And the Neolithic peoples have left the oldest stone structures in the land, not very far from here.
mm,
So I've been spending time with the very oldest ancestors here who were constructing their sites 500 years before they built Stonehenge. So this is what a time depth of like
Seven.
yeah, as much as 7,000 years ago. So I've
mm,
been spending a lot of time in this strata of the land because we're very fortunate to live in an incredibly ancient and magical place.
mm.
Work has really been around the dead and the land and the forces that I talk about in Lucifer Praxis. So in Praxis, when I talk about the fallen angels and bring through the fallen angels, you discover that they're not um, empty categories, but they contain the secrets of lightning and sun and moon and like reading the omens. And
Divination.
so
Mm,
these omens and this practice in the landscape and being present in the landscape with these things is really where my work has been. That's where I'm at.
mm. I love that. Can I ask what inspired you to work in that way?
Um, I always like to go to first principles. I always like to get to the the earliest iteration of something to then be able to work forward into present time and understand where I am. And here I'm very fortunate because I have like thousands of Bronze Age sites. I have what probably 20 Neolithic sites. Then there's an Iron Age Celtic layer on top of that, and then there's the modern layer, and it's me finding
And mining.
and the mining and industry and tourism and kind of discovering 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 the land and discovering myself and discovering who I am and what's my work to do here.
I
So
love that. And it's interesting because I've almost never hear about folks doing work that is so that far back ancestrally. So
yeah.
I'm really curious to hear more about that as you write more about it. I think that's really cool. Thank you.
Um, I'm always working with the body. Um, oh gosh. A few years ago I gave some performances. I was working with the Egyptian transformation spells from the Book of the Dead
Mm,
and the various mortuary texts they go back. And so I was creating dances based on this. And I kind of set in motion a quite well, I kind of burned myself to ashes in the years following that. I've been rebuilding myself. So part of my practice has been, doing weights and things and training and building up the physical strength of my body, which I love because I can empty my mind of all of the thoughts and just go into a super, kind of space. How would you describe? Just super intimate and focused, a kind of a strange, unique attention that belongs to that
yeah,
space and that sense of like training the nervous system as well, which really interests me to feel how I can increase its tolerances and
yeah,
also how it changes, how it fluctuates depending on my health because I'm bipolar. So some days I just can't move, but other days I can, I front squat my body weight and it's okay. So it's a really interesting process of having some hard limits
absolutely.
with weights. I like that sense of like the hardness and the heaviness and gravity from the start has always been like a major interest of mine.
Mm,
Just the part of Buto training is like working with the body as a sack of water. It goes back to Noguchi gymnastics or Noguchi Taizo where you feel the body and the weight of the body and its water nature. So I've been sort of developing that through weight training and just getting fit generally. And but also I've returned again to dance after taking a break after that performance, the last performance, and I've picked up again on an earlier dance I did to do with Salome called the Decollation of Flowers. I've returned to Salome and I'm creating a new dance, a new Salome dance, her death dance. And
mm,
that's a deep interior process of bringing through a kind of Salome as a Dakini. Does that make sense? Like, what is the wisdom of Salome? It's a little bit inspired by the figure of Salome in Jung's Red Book, but that's just an aspect of it. It's also to do with what the church, it's like the apocryphal legend of her death. I don't know if you or your listeners know. She's the Epiphanius is the most perhaps like visceral rendering of Salome's legendary death, but she has fled to Spain after all of the affair with John and the his loss of his head through her dance. And she's living in Spain. She will be, according to the timeline, I guess, between 24 and 26 at this point. And it's winter. So I'm also fascinated by winter as a time because of the hardness of winter, the coldness. It's something which is antithetical to my very nature. I'm very Mediterranean and I love the warmth, but to work with hard things is really interesting. That's where you find deep understanding. So it's winter and she's the river has frozen. A river has frozen. I love the idea because rivers are motion, and I've worked before with the idea of a river and motion with working with the figure of Laure, Colette Pegnot, who was the lover of Georges Bataille. So she had one of her pseudonyms was Claude Arax because Arax was a river that couldn't be a bridge could not be built over it. It kept destroying them through its turbulence. So I love this idea of such a turbulent spirit that it will not allow anything to cover it or to stay over it. This speaks to me very much as well. And also the importance of movement, just the importance and the power of movement and connecting to movement from within this inner turbulence.
Mm.
So the image of a frozen lake, and having gone through, like now I've been through the perimenopause, I'm post-menopause. It's this, what does it mean to freeze the movement? What does it mean to be in this state
Mm.
of moving towards death? Anyway, she's there. She's skating on the river and it cracks, the ice cracks, and her body falls beneath the surface and is flailing in the turbulence of the water beneath the ice. But her head remains suspended above and caught in the ice, and it slices through her neck, and she like gradually loses her head while her body is dancing uncontrollably underneath. The image of a headless dancer is something I've worked with throughout my choreographies and dances. So when I read about this death of Salome, I have to dance that. It will be impossible, but impossibility is for me like the invitation to attempt something. So, so this is where my spiritual practice is at the moment, to bring something through that somehow saves Salome from all of the hate that the church inflict on this woman for like the moral opprobrium that's put on her and this like terrible death that's imagined for her because of what she did. And it's very complex, even the dance initial for Herod when she's 14 or a child in the Bible. It's actually a dance that is given traditionally for the menarche. And it's presented, this is through the research of a French anthropologist that I discovered that really intrigued me because it gave another aspect to the dance which had nothing to do with the idea that she was some salacious,
Mm.
bloodthirsty, sexual creature, but actually it was another story about dance and another story about womanhood and the body and the
Mm.
set of causality that establishes from this, because of course then we have, I don't know, John is also very special to me. I'm a kind of Catholic, so I'm not, but I'm not an Orthodox or straight Catholic by any means at all. So like John is very special to me, but so is Salome, and I wanted to bring through the feminine counterpart and tell another story about Salome and her death. But yeah, she loses her head.
Sounds interesting to me. And
Yeah,
selfishly, I love that you're weightlifting because I also am. And I just
yeah.
from
I've seen your posts and they're great.
everyone should do it. I'm like obsessed.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's so obsession creating.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
all occultists and magic people should do it, is it really is this embodied
Mm,
experience in this way that I've never quite had with anything else. Like it teaches a new relationship to the body. I think in a
yeah.
not much else does. I guess everything does in its own way, but
Yeah,
I
you really appreciate what the body can do. Yeah.
absolutely. And if anyone wants to watch your dance performances, are there any recordings available or is it all
Um,
person
there's a
experience?
there's a few clips online, but I actually took my website offline because I didn't want to have my work in the digital realm. I want it to exist.
This
I want
experience?
it to exist in the real because you have to be there and witness it. But yeah,
I totally get that. I don't have any of my books available digitally, kind of for that same reason. I want it to just be this tactile thing that people have
yeah,
to throw in their bag and mess
yeah.
up, whatever. So, thank you guys so much. I've got two final questions that I end every show with. So, the first one is, what is something that you guys have stopped doing that you originally thought was going to be a helpful thing, but ended up harming you in some way, something that you've stopped doing? And the reason I'm asking this, so the whole premise of this show, it's called the Heal and Harm Show because I find a lot of people getting into spirituality or getting into self-help or self-improvement oftentimes end up worse than when they started. And one obvious example of that is people end up in cults or they end up in some kind of cult of personality or they take things a bit too far and the attempts to heal or help themselves end up actually harming themselves a little bit. So I'm curious if there's anything that you guys both in your life, spiritual practice, whatever way you want to answer it, that you've stopped doing because you found it was harmful to you.
Raw food veganism.
Fair. I'm actually shocked that you tried that at one point.
Yeah,
Several years of
I've
it.
done all kinds of like crazy ascetic practices, and that was one that I did for a long time. And it just no, it just killed me.
Yeah,
You are
Psychotic,
yeah,
psychotic. Please, women particularly listening to this,
eat meat.
you need to eat meat, you need to eat eggs, you need to consume dairy.
You need to prepare food from scratch and not to eat prepared meals
Yeah,
because they're full of poison.
yeah,
You need to learn how to make your own,
yeah. Eat more meat.
but eat meat, yeah.
totally fair. I'm not a raw food vegan, but I am a vegan. But it's all good. I have no shade on people who eat meat. I actually, my hot take is I feel like people who eat meat should at least hunt a few
Yeah,
times in their life.
yeah.
I strongly believe that. Like I respect hunters,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
but
the
there's like,
relationship with animals is important.
yeah.
I had ayahuasca told me you can't eat something unless you love it.
Hmm,
Like the love and the respect for, and that's including like vegetables, everything.
absolutely.
Like there has to be that sense of reverence for what you are consuming and what you are bringing
Absolutely.
into yourself because it's coming on the journey with you now, and you are entangled.
It's a merging of beings. Like you become
Yeah,
one body in a sense eventually.
yeah.
So I completely agree with that. Thank you for sharing, Peter. That's hilarious. Was not what I was expecting. But that's a great
But
answer. I love it. Your turn, Alkistis.
my caring what other people think.
Love it.
Yeah, just I stopped, and yeah, that was healthy. Stop
Incredible.
looking at what other people were saying. Just stop reading comments. Stopped all of that. Stopped doing anything that I wasn't really interested to do.
I love it. And so for anyone listening to this who wants to embody that vibe and doesn't know how, what advice would you give?
Just turn off your mobile phone and go and like just detox from it and start doing things that bring pleasure in other ways. Like the small pleasures of the those kind of hits from likes and attention. It's nothing compared to like really doing something, really creating or being out there.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. So, okay, one final question. And then what is one thing that you guys are doing in your lives right now, spiritually, mundane wise, whatever, that is healing and positive and has brought a lot of goodness into your reality?
Prayer.
Hmm.
Continual prayer, like throughout the day, at night. I fall asleep praying. I've woken up praying, and it's just transformed how I feel. Like any negative situation becomes a way to get a wider perspective, a deeper perspective, a perspective which is more compassionate, and then act. But prayer fundamentally is a kind of river running through everything. It's just a ground to all action and all like awareness, just grounded in prayer.
I love that. And yourself, Peter?
Well, let's stay with the physical. Um, I'm doing a lot of work with clubs at the moment, like steel clubs.
Like
Um,
Indian club bells.
yeah, like some, and I've been off the mats from my martial practice since I like had a like some hip issues from jiu-jitsu. So like I'm no longer fighting, but I think it's important for men and women to have like a physical practice with a martial focus. And so I'm finding the the patterns and movement and flow of working with weighted clubs to be a really beneficial thing. And again, as I said, I was talking a lot about the Stone Age. A lot of the patterns of the movement you'd find if you were fighting with axes.
Mm.
So I've been thinking a lot about thinking a lot about axes and like yeah, moving with clubs.
A lot of axes.
I love that. So I don't know if this exists in the UK, but here in Toronto, we have axe throwing.
Yeah, yeah, we have that in yeah.
as a thing, and it's so fun. You can go and like throw axes and throw knives, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
And there's something interesting about connecting with that, I think, on a ancestral level too,
On an
that
ancestral level, it's huge. Yeah.
Hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. The touching things at a distance with throwing things is very interesting.
yeah.
Because
Also from a witchcraft.
witchcraft is very much this like touching at a distance. So like if you have a
Casting
practice
stuff.
which is involved with touching something at a distance, then that transfers significantly. So yeah, like intention with everything.
I love that. That's incredible. I hadn't made that connection with the touching at a distance with the axes, but now you're gonna get me thinking. I love that. That's really fun. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you both for all of your generosity of time and energy and your thoughts, and just so appreciate having you on. Hopefully, I have you guys on again, as there's so much I didn't even get to. But you guys are both an absolute pleasure and such a gift to the magical community at large. So thank you both so much for everything you do, both showing up today and then writing all of these very cool things, publishing all these very cool people. And I'm just so appreciative to share space with you guys. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sabrina. Thank you.